Welcome to our Simplifying the Wacky World of Water Storage. I have to tell you, water storage has been like my nemesis when it comes to the preparedness world because there's so much completely contradictory information out there about how to store water, how to treat water, what you need to do with water, what you can use, what you can't. I mean, literally you can find experts on either side from pretty much every part. So over the years, I have talked to a lot of experts and just had to come to conclusions myself that of what I thought would work that would be the safest way, and you're going to be getting that information tonight of what I think is going to work the best for you, the cheapest, easiest way to do your water storage. Oh, here we go. So anytime there's any kind of anything, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's sewage backup, whether it's flooding, whether it's ice storms, it's going to probably affect your water. Whether or not you can go over and turn on your faucet and actually get water to come out. So because of that, if you want to drink or eat or wash anything, you need to have some water stored in order to be able to take care of yourself during those difficult times. So water is an essential element to survival and a necessary item in an emergency supply kit. Following a disaster, clean drinking water may not be available. Your regular water source could be cut off or compromised through contamination for days or weeks. Prepare yourself by building a supply of water that will meet your family's needs during an emergency. That's from FEMA and ready.gov. It's interesting that they used to just say that you only needed things for 3 days, and they're realizing that there's no way help is realistically getting there. So I think they're tired of the bad press, and they're starting to change everything to 2 or 3 weeks that you need to be able to be self-sufficient. So today's goal from me to you is that you figure out what you need. I'm hoping that you're going to learn at this class what you really need, how much you really need of it, and what to do with it. How to store, so you're going to be learning how to store water and how to treat water for not only your 72-hour kits, but for if you're sheltering at home after something happens. And it doesn't even have to be, your house doesn't have to be destroyed and you're living in a tent. It could just be that there's riots, there's I don't know, so whatever reasons that you can't go to the store, that you don't have any water. So it'll pretty much covers any of those things. All right, so we talked a few weeks ago or a few months ago about this, but I just want to go over it really quickly. In your go bag, in your survival bag, you need to have water, some water stored. But you can't really have 3 days of water, because 3 days of water is about 25 pounds of water that you're going to be lugging around that's going to pretty much take up your whole backpack. So realistically, you can carry about 4 pints of water, which is the minimal amount you need to survive. And then you want to have a way that you can filter some water that you find along the way. Hopefully you're getting somewhere or going through somewhere that you can find some water that you're going to want to filter. All right, so filtering water costs anywhere between $5 and about $20 for filters for your go bags. You can get bottle filters. A lot of different companies have them. They don't all do, most of them don't do viruses, but in the United States, we don't have viruses in our water. So unless something happens and it gets planted in our water, I can't foresee that that really is a need. But we are going to talk about how to treat your water in case that could be a problem. But for the most part, you're just filtering out buggy kind of things that are so big that all these filters would filter that out. You can treat your water. There's a lot of different kinds of treatments out there that you can use. Frankly, they all make your water taste bad. I have a friend that they were hiking, I think it was Mount Whitney, and their primary way that they had planned was to use a life straw, which frankly, I don't know why anyone uses. Who wants to get down on the ground and drink out of a puddle? So anyway, they had a life straw because it does make your water safe to drink. Well, their life straw stopped working, I think it was day 2. And her husband was getting sick from the tablets that they had to treat the water. So he pretty much stopped drinking and got very dehydrated. So you have to be really careful. Make sure that you're actually trying out if you're going to get some chemical treatment, that you try it and make sure that it's something that you can actually, it's palatable enough for you to be able to drink. There is this fun little new, it's not that new, it's been on the market for a while. It's called a Sawyer. It's made from a company called Sawyer. This is a mini Sawyer, and it's only like this size. This is the whole canister. This will filter 10,000 gallons of water. It comes with this little thing that you just put on, and you back flush it. So when the filter starts slowing down, you just back flush it. It cleans it out with some fresh water, so you have to keep some water. Back flush it with some fresh water. It cleans it all out, and then you start all over again. It does not kill viruses, and it does not affect the taste of the water, but it will clean the impurities and the yucky stuff, so how it looks and how it will take out the protozoa and things like that. It just won't take out viruses, and it won't make your water taste better because it doesn't have a carbon filter. But it will take out everything else so that your water is safe to drink. These are under $20 for this to do 10,000 gallons. I mean, it literally like weighs, I don't know, an ounce or something. So it's a really great way. They also have some bigger ones for other kind of filters that we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so if you shelter at home, how much water do you really need per person per day? On average, right now, people in your house, between showers and washing dishes and brushing teeth and doing laundry, use between 7 and 100 gallons per person per day. Probably also watering your lawns, probably get included in that also. So that is a lot of water. When you consider, these are the numbers that they're talking about you storing for emergencies. Half a gallon to a gallon of water for drinking and cooking, a half a gallon to a gallon for sanitation and hygiene, about 5 gallons per week to do clothes. And I was thinking about this today, that my amount of laundry that I wash right now would no way, the stuff that how I do laundry right now would no way wash in 5 gallons of water. That's washing and rinsing. So you're talking basically washing underwear, socks, and maybe a shirt in that amount of water. So 1 week of water would be 19 gallons per person if you do the high ends of those, which I think are a lot more realistic. So for 3 weeks, it's about 57 gallons, or about what you get in a 55-gallon drum for 3 weeks for one person. So that gives you a good visual. All right, so there's many different kinds of things that you can store water in. We have a lot of different things here for you today. We have a 55-gallon drum, a 30-gallon drum, and I don't even know what this size is, so I'm going to say it's about maybe 15 or 12 gallons. In your emails from me, you'll be getting a link to the guy that sells these locally. These are all used things. They're all washed, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but they're all pretty cheap, and so you'll be getting a link to him and how to get a hold of him. All right. So let's talk about 55-gallon drums. 55-gallon drums run between $50 and $64 right now. That's the cheap end, depending on where you're getting them from. Sam's Club online sells them for $64. That's the cheapest online that I could find. Most of them are selling them for over $80. You can get them from SOS down in Van Nuys. They are $51 down there right now for 55 gallons. So basically, you're figuring about $1 a gallon or a little bit more than that. That to me is like that's what you're aiming for in long-term water storage. You can get these big totes. This is a 275-gallon tote. Comes in a cage, pretty stable, probably would not fall over in an earthquake. The guy who sells the barrels also has some of those. He's selling right now for $100. That's only like $30 or 30 cents a gallon for water storage. That's really good. If you want one of those, you're going to want to contact him. They normally sell for between $500 and $600 if they're delivered to your house. So we're talking 2.5 or how much? 25 cents a gallon, around in there. No, that's wrong. Over $1 a gallon. $1.50 a gallon, something like that. Okay, these are super tankers. There's a lot of different companies that are doing things like that. The big ones are 240 gallons or something. These run between $2 and $4 a gallon depending on where you're getting them from and if you're getting them delivered. I think these smaller ones are stackable, although I don't know how well that would work in an earthquake. I can't just see that them staying. They also have really big ones you can get for outside. I couldn't find a price on those. I have no idea how much they are, but it is an option out there. So let's talk a little bit about used barrels versus new barrels, because that is a big question that I get from people all the time. It's a question that I had actually for a long time. So this is the thing. When you buy, blue barrels are really the only color I would go with. They do sell white ones, but if you're talking about storing it for drinking water, the blue filters out the sun rays so it doesn't affect the water inside like it does with the clear. The clear get a lot more algae in them than the blue ones do. You want, the ones that he sells are used. If you're getting them used, they need to make sure they only had food in them. And not only that, you need to make sure that the food was in them is something that you're going to want to drink, because plastic soaks up smell and taste. No matter how much you wash it, the more you wash it, the less it's going to get, but it's going to taste like that. It'll taste like fish stuff. It'll taste like soy. It'll taste like whatever happened to be in your barrel. So a lot of them have had fruit juice in them, and then, that's not a bad deal. If you're getting used barrels for your washing, your sanitation part of it, which is it's about a gallon a day really for sanitation, or a little over a gallon a day, maybe 2 gallons a day. So it's like maybe twice as, or 2/3 of your water storage is going to be sanitation stuff, and then it would be okay for that. But for water, you really need to think about, so there's 2 things you can do. You can get them and have it taste like whatever. If you've got a good filter, you're going to be able to filter out that taste, and it's not going to make any difference to you. But if you don't have a good filter, you really need to keep that in mind. The other problem with it is because it has food in it, food breeds bacteria. Eventually, especially here where it's hot outside, and if your barrels are sitting in the sun, eventually your bleach is going to basically be used up in your barrel, and it'll be left with no bleach, and that stuff will start leaching back into your water, and you can get bacterial growth. So my suggestion is, if you're going to get used barrels, because they are way cheaper, they're half the price of getting new ones, for your drinking water, to make sure that you've got a good filter, and we're going to talk about a way to be able to sanitize that water so it kills anything, and if you filter it, you'll get rid of all the taste. If you're going to clean, if you have barrels, if they're new barrels, all you need to do is rinse them out with water because they've never had anything in them, and so you're just rinsing it to get rid of any residual whatever happens to be in there. If they have been sitting around for a long time, especially if they've had any algae growth in them, you're going to want to fill them. Empty them out, fill them about 1/4 full of water, put a cup of bleach, new bleach, not bleach that's been sitting at your house for 2 years, because then it won't be really any good anymore. So new plain bleach, roll it around. We put them in the backyard, and we just turned them like every 15 minutes. I went out and just moved them so that so that water inside was hitting every single part of my barrel. And I didn't do it every 15 minutes, but I did it for a couple of days so that I made sure that I got them all nice and clean inside, and then you just dump them out, rinse them out, and fill them up. Okay, new barrels you're just going to rinse out and fill up. So for filling, a lot of people are using their regular garden hoses. How many of you are using your regular garden hose? That's because you've been to my class. She's shaking her head no. Okay, most people just use their regular garden hose. Consumer Reports did a really good article, I don't know, like a long time ago now, about how green garden hoses are made with a substance that is toxic to us, especially when the water has sat in your hoses. So if that's the only hose you have to fill them up, you want to make sure you run water through them for 10 minutes so that it's completely flushed out really good. But it's really better to get a drinking water safe hose, which basically is an RV hose. And in fact, I found them normally the food storage companies sell them for $25 or $50 for 25 feet. They're really expensive. But I went online on Amazon, my friend, and I found them for $10 for for 25 feet. So that's much more doable. And if you get together with a couple friends and you just rotate them around, 25 feet isn't very long. Remember, wherever you're going to fill up your barrel, wherever your barrels are going to be, you have to fill them up there because they weigh over 450 pounds when they're full. So they have to be where you're going to have them. So you can also use a plastic hose, the kind that like just looks like that at the hardware store. It just goes really flat and it's made out of plastic, and those are safe to use too. Okay, so you want to fill it with the cleanest water possible. Remember, whatever you're putting in is what is going to be coming out. So the cleanest water that you can put in there is better. You don't want to fill it all the way to the top because we can get freezes here that can freeze your barrel, can split your barrel if it gets too cold. In Utah, that happens a lot of people that overfill their barrels. There they need to leave like 4 inches of room so that it has some expansion room. You want to store them in the shade or covered. I happen to have heavy tarps on mine that are reflective that are covering them, and you want to store them off the ground, not on cement, not directly on the ground. If it's a new barrel, you do not need to rotate your water every 6 months or even every year. It can sit for 5 or 10 years. But you are going to want to open them and check them every now and then just to see. Sometimes your tops didn't get tightened all the way, or because of heat and cold, they might loosen up a little bit. So you want to go and check your tops to make sure that they're staying nice and tight so that you don't get contamination in them. Because if you get contamination, that's when you're going to get algae growth. One other thing about them is if they're sitting in the sun and the sun is going right on them, it will crack those are called bungs, the parts on the top. And the bungs are 2 different sizes. One is a fat thread and one is a skinny thread. And if they crack, then it's the same thing. You can buy replaceable ones. They're only a couple dollars, but just make sure you get the right size when you're getting the replaceable ones.
Yeah, a good friend of mine that had 3 barrels in a row like that, he hooked a hose.
We're going to talk about that.
And then he went all the way to the bottom with the tube on the next one, and went over to the next one, and on the last one, he had going into the top of one tube all the way to the bottom, going into the next one, like that, okay? So he had this thing going, and then on the last one, he hooked up his garden hose.
Right. So he's talking about having, I'll show you a picture of this. It's tandeming your barrels together. So you put it by where your faucet is, and whenever you turn on your hose, it's going to circulate your water through your barrel. So water additives. So this is a big thing. I have done a lot of study about this, and I'm not actually convinced you really need to put additives in if you're using a used barrel, because there was nothing in there, and we're using chlorinated water to fill it up. So it already has chlorination in it. So if you're using a used barrel, you want to put in a 1/4 cup of bleach or a water additive. Now, water additives, there are a couple main ones on the market. One of them is aerobic stabilized oxygen. It's the healthy version of water storage. This bottle will do two barrels, fill up 2 barrels, and it runs, it's between $20 and $30, so it's not cheap. This one is called Water Preserver. This is the only additive I've ever found that actually has testing that shows that it actually stores. And they say at least 5 years your water will store with this one. This one says 5 years, but there's no testing. So I don't, it's guesswork with this one. Okay.
1/4 cup of bleach, is that for a 55 gallon?
Yeah, that's for 55 gallons. Yeah.
On new barrels.
Uh-huh.
How long could you, the only reason I'm asking this, I'm going to reveal my complete stupidity.
No.
This is a horrible confession. But I'm a single woman.
Yes.
I realize now those are not practical for me because I can't really do anything with them. The water's been in there for 20 years.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. That is not a dumb question. You're not the only one that's in that position. So for those of you that didn't hear, she was saying that she doesn't think getting 55-gallon drums, or something even bigger for that matter, is very practical for her because she can't move the barrel. It's hard to rotate the water, and so it just sits there. I have a friend who moved, and she had 30 barrels of water at her house that had been sitting there for 20 years. And she had never rotated any of it, and when all but a couple of the barrels that had cracked lids on them, but for the most part, when she opened them, they just smelled fine. There was no algae or anything in them.
They were new barrels when she got them, right?
I'm not really sure because she's pretty cheapskatey, so I'm guessing they could have been used. But she did put bleach in them, and they were outside in the sun. She didn't have them covered or anything. So I'm saying it's sort of like canned food. I think it can store a lot longer. But we're going to talk about some ways that even if you don't filter your water, even if you get algae in it, how you can still make it drinkable. And it might just be easier to do nothing to begin with. Don't rotate it and just do that anyway, because you're going to be able to clean your water with what I'm going to tell you. And then you don't have to worry about it. So it is a lot easier to be able to open it up and just use it and not have to do anything to it. Once again, if you're using Clorox to do your barrels, make sure you're not using old Clorox. It's plain Clorox, not scented, and that it's new. Not on how you know if it's new at the store. Look at the expiration date. So I have thought this for a long time. Do any of you know what calcium hydrochloride is?
No. That's because he teaches chemistry.
Okay. So it's pool shock. Okay, it's what people put in their pools to keep them from turning green. And I just thought, I'm not going to be drinking pool shock, but I've done a ton of research into it, and now I'm a fan of it. So let me tell you about pool shock. This is my pool shock right here. This is a pound of it. All right, so it costs about $10 to do 10,000 gallons of water. Unlike liquid bleach, it stores indefinitely, as long as it's not wet. When you store it, you need to store it in glass or plastic. In fact, the guy that I got this from, I went to a show and I bought this from there. He said that I'm going to show you here, let me show you the picture. This is what happens if you put a metal ring on the top. It's very corrosive when it's what's the word? Full strength. And so it will just eat through metal. And so you're not even supposed to store it by metal. So what I did with mine is I have these kind of, I forgot the name of these, they're Tattler lids. They're reusable canning lids. And they're plastic, and they have a gasket so that'll keep it airtight so no fumes will come out. And so I just put that on, and then this is just a lid, but doesn't have a gasket in it, so it doesn't keep it airtight. And I just tightened it on there, and that's how I keep mine. And it's marked on the top. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's see. So when you're going to use this, you don't just sprinkle it in dry to your thing. In fact, I read that if you're I don't know what's the word I'm trying to think of. If you were going to sanitize a gallon of water, you would need like 1 grain of this. You can never get 1 grain out. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a solution that's it's still condensed version. So you're going to make a solution where you take 1 level teaspoon of this dry stuff and you put it in a gallon of water and you stir it up really good until it dissolves and you let it sit for 30 minutes, and then that is your concentrate that you're going to use to put into something else. So it's a 2-step process. It's making the solution, and the solution's where you're going to use. The solution's basically your bleach product, but it's more concentrated than a regular bleach. So for instance, if I was going to do...
Basically making a gallon of bleach.
Yes, but a more powerful bleach. So if I had a gallon of water then that I wasn't sure if it was safe to drink or not, I will put 2.5 tablespoons of my concentrated liquid, or my liquid that I made, into the bleach, stir it up, let it sit for 30 minutes, and then I could drink it. Okay, are you following me so far? All right, so I did a lot of research the other night when I was up till 3 o'clock the second morning about trying to figure out, because I couldn't find a chart. I'm like, surely, because people have been doing this kind of method for a long time, surely there's some charts out there on the internet that would tell me exactly what I needed to do to be able to do things. Oh no, there's not. So my husband and I figured out that to do a 55-gallon drum, that you would use 4 3/4 cups, I don't think I have it in here. 4 3/4 cups of that solution would go in my barrel, and that would do my barrel. So it's actually less concentrated than regular bleach, now that I think about it. Not more. Okay. You also, if you're not sure, if you've over-chlorinated something and you're really nervous about it, you can just get a pool kit that tests the chlorine level. Doesn't have to be test everything, just one that has the chlorine level. They cost about $10, I think. I bought it on Amazon. I didn't buy it, but I found it on Amazon. And you can just test your water to make sure if it's over-chlorinated or not. If it's over-chlorinated, you're just going to let it sit. Stir it up and let the chlorine will evaporate off. So just let it sit. Okay, $10. All right, so other things that you're going to need. A bung wrench. On the top of your barrels, there is the bungs. The bungs are inset into here. And the things to open them are inset. There's nothing to hold onto. I've had other people that tried using other methods other than buying one of these, and it ends up stripping this out or making them frustrated, or you just don't get a tight seal and you're not closing it tight enough, or you have a hard time getting it off. Spend the like $12 and buy this. Emergency Essentials is the only one I know that sells this particular one. It is the best one that I have found on the market. It's really sturdy. It's longer, so you have some good torque when you're tightening and loosening it. The whole secret to keeping your water safe in here is to keep the seal good. Something else that you're going to want is a way to get the water out. I can't tell you how many people I know have water stored in here and have no clue, have not even thought about the fact that they can't just go turn the faucet on and get the water out. So siphon hose. This is a siphon hose. It has this little, hear that little jingle? It has like something, it has a little ball thing in it. And you stick it down into the bottom till it goes down to the bottom, and you're just gonna jiggle it and it makes the water come out. I don't know how it works, but it does. Also, there are some other options. This is called a drum pump. This comes, when you buy it, it can go in a 5-gallon one, or you can extend it to be in this. People think these are so big. These are only 2 feet by 3 feet, so they're really not that big. So you're gonna glue it in. This actually will screw right into here. This one won't. This one will. This one screws right into it. This one will screw over here. No, I got both of these from Rainy Day Foods. Emergency Essentials, I don't think they sell this one. I think they only sell this one. But I heard that either Home Depot or Lowe's is selling one like this or something like this. I haven't gone on to check yet, but I think it does. So one of the good things about this one is that it limits how much water you get out at a time. So that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it limits how much water you get out at a time, right? Sometimes that would be good, and sometimes it would be a pain to have to like only get. And you can actually set it with these little rings that you put on here, so only a 1/4 cup comes out, or a cup comes out, or whatever. The other one is this one. This is called a siphon pump. This one does actually stick down in there, and this is supposed to have a little cap on it. It fell off somewhere. Because if you can imagine, if you leave this sitting in your barrel, you've now left it open to bugs and anything else crawling up through here. So you need to have a way to close it off. So you're going to put it in, and you're going to pump this, and it makes the water start coming out. And I think, if you do this, it makes it so it still doesn't have a cap on it, but it makes it so it doesn't drip out. So anyway, it's really easy to use. It comes out pretty fast, and once you get it going, it'll just keep going. It depends. Like if I'm wanting to limit my water, I probably would like this one. If I don't, I probably want this one.
The red one breaks easily.
Yeah, pretty much all of them. I have at least 2. I have like 4 of these at my house. And then I have this. Like this is not going to break. I will always be able to get it out.
And the other one was used for, it was made for sparklet stops originally.
Yeah, this one. So I think if you could get one of these that just does more than a cup, I think it might be okay. Anyway, so yeah, those are getting water out. We're going to see some other ideas in just a second. You also are going to want some kind of containers to be able, just ignore that, to be able to put your water in, because you're not going to want to go out to your barrel in the backyard every time you want to drink water. I love these square ones. You can get, Walmart carries a bigger one that's a 7-gallon, which to me would be too heavy. This is a 5-gallon. This one is stackable. You can put this nice little faucet on it, and you can set it next to your sink, and you can just turn it on and off like your faucet. It's awesome. So to me, this is like the world's best invention to go along with the rest of the stuff. This one I got from, I think it is made from a company called Ropac makes them. And but they do have some online that I found for pretty cheap. I like the blue ones. You can get, Winco actually carries a white one that's pretty cheap, but once again, I don't really like that it's white. I like that the light can't get into it. So anyway, online I found, I gave you a link to one. It's not to this one, but it's to one that's similar. The only difference is that this one's stackable and that one's not, but if you lay them on the side, then they would still be stackable.
I like the bricks.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about those. That's my not that list. Okay, so organize your stuff. In other words, you don't want to have all your water stuff hidden in your garage and your water barrels in the backyard, and an earthquake comes and knock your house down and you can't get to any of your stuff to open your barrels. So keep it somewhere close, but in something that's going to keep it protected from, you know, everything that's out there. Okay, we already talked about all this, so we're going to breeze right through there. So here's some storage ideas. This is a guy who actually had his water runoff from his roof going into a barrel that went into other barrels, and then I don't know what he was using it for, watering his garden or something. Here's the stackable kind that you can make. It doesn't cost too much to make these. I think Honeyville actually for a while was selling these in their stores. You can just have them like this in your garage all stacked up. Here's some ones that are tandem. These ones are collecting rainwater. That's why they're just in trash cans. And this one, they've got it actually hooked up to it's running through their water in their basement that comes into their house, so it's circulating their water. And then I just found this is a nice little stackable one, just for the 2-1, not including the barrels or anything else, just for the little stand that it goes on was like $250 for 2 barrels. So that to me is just not a good use of money. All right.
Fill from the top. You never have to fill the bottom. You fill the top one, it runs down into the bottom.
Well, yeah, if it's like that. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Pinterest has a ton of step-by-step ideas of how to build things to store your water barrels. All right, so these are my not that's. A lot of people say you can use the water from your water heater, which you can use, but the water in your water heater is going to be disgusting. If you want to use that, first of all, you're not going to get that much water out of it probably, and you're going to want to have a good filter to be able to filter it. Water, these are all the things I've been dropping all night. These, they decompose. They'll start leaking in about a year. The Tide, so detergent or bleach containers you can use, but not for drinking water, only for washing water, which is sort of funny because we put bleach in our water, so I really think you probably could use the bleach one, but you'd have to make sure that the bleach is dissipated. Pool water, washing water, not drinking water unless you have a distiller. Canned water is on my not that list. It is so expensive. It does have a 25-year shelf life. It's super heavy. I know people that were getting these for their 72-hour kits. That just seems weird to me. It costs between $15 and $22 a gallon. Remember, you're trying to get to the $1 mark. That is a really expensive water. Okay, aqua pods or water bobs. These are basically bladders that you fill up in your bathtub, which is great if you have like a hurricane or something, or not a hurricane, a tornado coming that you know a while ahead of time. They take over a half an hour to fill up. They are disposable, so you only can store your water in there for a month or two, so it's not like you can fill it up and just leave it in an empty bathtub because it'll just start leaking. And it takes at least a half an hour to fill. So even if a tornado was coming, you're not going to have it filled up you're not going to be able to go turn the water on and have it filled up. So this is really not a very good idea. The water's it's only 25 to 41 cents a gallon to buy this, so it's pretty cheap to buy it, but because it's disposable, it made the not that list. Okay, water bladders in a box. Have you seen these? They cost about $1.60 a gallon. They are refillable. All the reviews on them, half the reviews I was reading were talking about how much they leaked. So that's not really a great way of doing it. Okay, water bricks. Okay, everyone loves water bricks. You think they're the coolest invention ever. However, they're really not that great. Okay, so They're stackable. I've even seen coffee tables made out of them. They made a playhouse out of theirs. They come in a 1.5 or a 3.5 size. This one's the 3.5 size. You can store them under bed. They're pretty small. They are stacked. They look cute in theory, but in reality, there's problems. Think about rotating the water in all those. I mean, I don't even like rotating the water in my barrel that I can do at one time. That's like opening each one of them. And the way that they're built, if you did get algae in them, it would be really hard to clean them. You would really have to soak them. They're very expensive. By very expensive, I mean $6 to $10 a gallon when you store water in there. There's just a lot better ways, cheaper ways to store water. To me, it's a gimmick. There's a lot of gimmicks in the food storage world, and this is one of them. Some people still like them. If you want to get them, go for it. But just know what you're getting when you are buying water bricks. And these are cheap ones. I've seen them actually more expensive than that. I think it works out to about $600 for 55 gallons of water versus $50 for the same amount of water. So that's very expensive. All right, some important considerations for drinking water. Is it safe to drink? So whenever you come upon some water that you need to fill, you have to think, is it safe to drink? Is there things in it that I can't see that are going to make me sick? And does it look good and does it look and taste good? So it's two different things you're looking at. I have to be really fast. When it has a lot of junk in it, you want to pre-filter. One of the good things, cheapest ways, is just getting coffee filters. They're about $3.50 for this amount. You can pre-filter that way. I also have, this is a paint strainer that you can get, that you can pour water in, and that is another way that you can filter your water. You can even just use an old t-shirt or a bandana or something like that. It's going to get the big stuff out of your water. You also want to sanitize it. That means killing the buggies, killing the things, the viruses, the bacteria, the protozoa, not the viruses, the bacteria and the protozoa. They're going to make you sick. Then you want to filter it. The filtering is what removes the metals and chemicals and improves taste. So you can see some filters, some high-end ones, do all of that. But there is some speculation as to if there was viruses, how much they would filter that out. So having that extra layer of being able to sanitize my water and making sure it's safe and then filtering it so it tastes good and gets all the yucky stuff out is a good two-stage thing. So pre-filter, you can use all these different things. You can even, like a Brita filter is a pre-filter. You can pour it through sand. Have some sand in a bucket, have a little way for it to get out. You can pour it through that. That pre-filters it. When you pre-filter, it makes your filters last longer because it doesn't clog up your filters. You're getting rid of all the big stuff first. So these are all other ways we've already talked about, right? Clorox, all the kinds of things that you can put in your water. Those sanitize your water. They're killing the bad things that's in your water. You also can boil your water, or actually it is believed you really only need to bring it to 160 degrees, which is actually below boil, that will kill all the buggy things. That filter right there is by that same Sawyer company. So it says it will go 100,000 gallons of water through that. But remember, it doesn't make it taste better. It just is it's going to filter out all the stuff it doesn't filter out chemicals either. You can make your own. Don't you just love this? It's a little DIY project. A little, what do we call these? Distiller, a little distiller. Okay, solar pasteurization. You can just use this is called a peat bottle, P-E-T-E. It's the kind of plastic it's made out of. Fill up with water, stick it in the sun. 6 hours later, your water will be safe to drink. If you're not sure if it's safe to drink, you can use something called a Wacky, which is a little indicator when the wax melts and comes down to the bottom, then you know that it's safe to drink. You also can put the water in a solar oven. It just speeds up the process of doing that. All right, survival stills. This is a big rage. I don't know if you've watched any of the, or listened to any of the webinars that they have in the preparedness world. A lot of people are buying these. They cost over $400. It takes 1 quart per hour is all that it distills, and you need a lot of water to go through that. And imagine all the fuel you're going to need to go through that. One of them, because it distills so slowly, if you had more than 6 people in your family, you would actually need 2 of them. You need to have a stove with fuel in order to be able to do it, and you need lots of fuel. So that is, especially for survival purpose, is on the not that list. So these are all things that purify and filter your water. It will clean it, but it could leave viruses. But like we talked about, in the U.S. right now, there are no viruses in our water. And it does make them taste good. So I have 4 different filters up here, or ones that I have. These are all called gravity filters, because you pour the water in the top and it just comes out by itself through the bottom. And this one is just a homemade one. It's about $50. It's not quite as good at filters as these, although you can get the same kind of filters that are in these and put them in here. This has a different kind. But if you sanitize your water first, there's no reason why you need to spend all the money on the expensive ones when you can just do the same thing for $50.
What do you think about UV pins?
You mean like SteriPens? SteriPen is a UV pen. They work, they fine. They're just expensive. They're $20. They only do about 100 gallons of water. And so you're talking, Yes, it does kill viruses, but we don't have any viruses to kill. Okay, so my recommendations. This is just bottom line what you need. Some kind of water bottle filter for your backpacks. They're about $20, and you can use them not in your backpacks. You can just use them at home, at home drinking your water at home too. At least 1 5-gallon drum or a 5-gallon jug, so that you have water to put stuff in, and it's a lot more usable when it's got a faucet on it. At least one 55-gallon drum, preferably 3 per person. That's about a 3-month supply of water. And don't forget your wrench. Some way to sanitize your water. With the research I've done, I now am going to endorse the calcium hypochlorite, because it's cheaper, easier, and takes up the less space. And I'm going to get a little chart and actually laminate it and put it on my bottle, so I'll know how I need to make it. And some way to filter your water. As long as you have some way to sanitize your water, you can get away with a cheap filter. This filter is like $300 or $400. So I don't need to do that if I've got something to kill the stuff in my water. All right. It's not a matter of if but when something happens. It's just a matter of if you're going to have your own water stored, if you're going to go stand in line to get water from somebody else. So there's a lot to think about water. You need to inventory what you already have, make a plan of what you still need, start gathering your supplies, practice using it, and rotate if needed. I had Dan back there, who's the water barrel guy, taught one of my classes a few years ago on water thing, and it's the first time I'd ever actually seen a pump being used, because I wasn't using them either. So get familiar with it. You don't want a disaster to hit and you can't find the instructions and you're frazzled anyway and you don't know how to do it. So if you just practice like once a year, be familiar with it, you'll be good.